Hello everyone, welcome to Bajirao IAS Academy daily newspaper analysis. Today is 6th August 2024 and today we have some important articles from different newspapers and we try to discuss all those important articles in a very detailed manner in this session. And before discussing them, we have one prelims practice question. The question is with respect to the reservations that were given recently through 103 Constitutional Amendment Act. Right, so the question is, the 103rd Constitutional Amendment Act introduced 10% quota for the economically weaker sections. So the question is whether this statement is correct or not. So this statement is absolutely correct because 103rd Constitutional Amendment Act provided 10% reservation for the economically weaker sections within the general category. And second statement says that at present members of the scheduled tribes and scheduled castes are entitled to economically weaker sections quota. No, this statement is absolutely correct because at present there is no provision which provides reservation also for scheduled castes and scheduled tribes in the economically weaker sections, right? Because already scheduled tribes have been given 7.5% of the reservation and scheduled castes are also given 15% of the reservation. So therefore scheduled castes and scheduled tribes will not be considered as part of the 10% of the quota which is being provided per the economically weaker sections. So therefore the correct answer for this question is one only is the correct answer for this question. Now if you look at the explanation of this particular part, so 103rd Constitutional Amendment Act, as we have already discussed, that it provides 10% of the reservation for the economically weaker sections other than the backward classes of the society, other backward classes, scheduled castes and scheduled tribes, for the admission into central government jobs and even educational institutions, right? So you can also go through the eligibility criteria to consider any candidate who is part of the general category to be considered as economically weaker sections. A criteria includes certain exclusions. Those persons who have 5 acres of land or above, so they will be excluded from the benefits of economically weaker sections in the general category. And second exclusion is that residential flat of 1000 square feet and above, then also candidates will be excluded from this reservation benefit of EWS. And the residential plot of 100 yards and above in a notified municipalities, then also they will be excluded from the benefits of reservation. And a residential plot of 200 yards and above in areas other than the notified municipalities, then they will also be excluded from the benefits of reservations, right? So income has to be certified by an officer not below the rank of the Tahsildar of a block, and income to be calculated from all sources. These all sources includes salary, agriculture, business and profession, and this income should not be more than 8 lakh rupees, right? This is the criteria to identify any person as economically weaker section candidate. Now today we have one important prelims practice question. The question is, Renke Commission, sometimes seen in news, is related to which of the following? So first option, subcategorization of OBCs, option B, agricultural marketing, option C, defense modernization, and option D, denotified tribes, right? This is a very simple question, and try to answer this question in the comment section and we'll be providing the correct answer in tomorrow's session. And without any further delay, let's start our discussion. We'll start this discussion with a very important article. So that is with respect to the recent incidents or recent things that were happening in Bangladesh, because students were coming out and they were protesting against the quota system in in Bangladesh. And this quota system protest by students over a period of time turned into anti-Sheikh Hasina's movement. So the students started demanding resignation of Sheikh Hasina and the resignation of Bangladeshi Prime Minister, and consequently she fled the country and now she take temporary refuge in India, right? So how these events that were unfolding in Bangladesh will impact India-Bangladesh relations, we need to understand this from multiple perspectives. It is very important because Bangladesh is very often considered as soft underbelly of India, So whatever happens in Bangladesh, it would have a direct impact on India. But this is a very very important development, because Sheikh Hasina is very often seen as or viewed as pro-India leader. Under the Sheikh Hasina regime, a number of infrastructure connectivity projects were laid down by the government of India to improve connectivity to Northeast. Government of India and Sheikh Hasina's Bangladesh have collectively worked together to prevent illegal immigration, or we could say terrorism and insurgency in northeastern part of India. However, the resignation of Sheikh Hasina, and there are also experts have been already expecting that the radical elements would come to power in Bangladesh. If radical elements, especially Jamaat-e-Islami, comes to power in Bangladesh, so that would be detrimental for India, because they are anti-India and pro-Pakistan. It would also harbors inter-services intelligence, a Pakistani intelligence agency, and that would create instability in the northeastern part of India. And it also provides an opportunity for China also to involve or increase its influence in Bangladesh, and that would pose potential security threats for India. Right? This is a diplomatic challenge. It is not just diplomatic challenge, it will be a security challenge, a diplomatic challenge, and even a strategic challenge for India. That has to be seen how Indian government would deal with this particular challenge, because stability in Bangladesh is very very important. Along with this stability, Bangladesh should not host the anti-India forces. There has been a growing anti-India sentiment in Bangladesh, and apart from growing anti-India sentiment, it is also expected that the Jamaat-e-Islami, a radical anti-India organization, would be part of the interim government. If it is part of the interim government, India would face worst consequences in terms of the bilateral relations between these two countries. Bangladesh's pro-China, pro-Pakistan stance would not benefit India. Right? So therefore, it would be obviously a diplomatic and strategic challenge for India that has to be seen how India could deal with it. Right? The context is that the recent downfall of the government of Dhaka, where Prime Minister, the former Prime Minister of Bangladesh, resigned, and she flees Bangladesh and landed in India. So resignation of Bangladeshi Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina will obviously affect the growing trade ties between India and Bangladesh. Trade is one of the important area between India and Bangladesh, and resignation of Bangladeshi Prime Minister would certainly impact trade relations between these two countries. And in fact, it would also restrict the movement of the people and goods, and it would also stall the potential free trade agreement that both countries are ready to sign. If both countries sign free trade agreement, that would increase trade, investment, commerce between these two countries manifold. Now, what are the matter? What is the issue behind Bangladeshi protests? Now, why students have been protesting? Why it has been led to killing of 300 individuals, 300 protesters, and that ultimately led to the Sheikh Hasina's resignation. So initially the students' protests were focused on abolishing the quota system in civil service jobs. So 30% quota has been provided for the next to the kin of Mukti Bahini freedom fighters of Bangladesh. However, students have been protesting to abolish this 30% quota in civil service jobs, and it has over a period of time grown into an anti-government movement in Bangladesh, anti-Sheikh Hasina movement in Bangladesh. And the mass protests in Bangladesh, so they initially began as a student demonstrations, and they were demanding reform to the civil service quota system, abolish 30% reservation being provided to the children and grandchildren of Mukti Bahini. And in fact, the Supreme Court ruling against the reintroduction of job quotas, they did not fully satisfy the protesters. It did not fully satisfy the protesters. These protesters continue to demand the abolition of all job reservations for the children of freedom fighters. So children of freedom fighters should not be given any reservations. So that is the strong stance of these protesters. However, the situation has further intensified when former army chief General Iqbal Karim Bhuiyan, so he criticized that the government handling of the protests, and he also called for troop withdrawal in support of Sheikh Hasina's government. So this ultimately led to the killing of around 300 protesters in Bangladesh. And even Bangladeshi army, looking at the situation, asked Sheikh Hasina to resign as a prime minister of Bangladesh, and she was also given 45 minutes time by the army to fled the country. And ultimately she fled the country and she landed in India as a temporary refuge, seeking temporary refuge. And in this context, it is very important that we need to understand the recent developments in India and Bangladesh relations. So if we talk about the India-Bangladesh relations, in the year 2023 itself, both India and Bangladesh have begun discussions on the free trade agreement. So we all knew what exactly is this free trade agreement means. So free trade agreement means that lesser tariffs would be eliminated between two different countries when it comes to trade and commerce. So therefore it would give boost or further fillip to trade and commerce between those two countries. Whatever potential that they have with respect to trade, investment, commerce, that potential will be fully tapped whenever two countries have the free trade agreement. However, this free trade agreement discussions are started between India and Bangladesh, but they are not yet fully signed. However, in order to take forward this free trade agreement, a joint working group on trade in Dhaka was constituted so that the free trade agreement and discussions over FTA could be taken forward. However, so when we talk about the free trade agreement, it holds a lot of benefits. One of the benefit is it would reduce or it would eliminate customs duties on goods. It is very important that one country should reduce customs duties, tariffs and duties on goods and services so that there will be increased trade and commerce relations between two countries. So whatever goods which are being which are being traded between India and Bangladesh, so either there will be no tariffs will be eliminated or will be further reduced. And in fact, it would also ease norms to help people promote further trade and investment opportunities in both the countries. However, so when we talk about India's financial assistance to Bangladesh, India already extended three lines of credit to Bangladesh amounting to around $8 billion for the development of road, rail, shipping and port infrastructure across Bangladesh. And as part of India's commitment to improve infrastructure in Bangladesh and connect India with the northeastern part of India through Bangladesh, in November 2023, two joint projects, mainly Akaura-Agartala cross-border rail link and Khulna-Mongla port rail, they were inaugurated by Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Bangladeshi former Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina jointly. And in fact, so both countries are also remain committed and they dedicated to further improve ports and marine connectivity. Because in the year 2023, so both countries have jointly agreed to operationalize the agreement for the use of both Chittagong port as well as the Mongla port. Both Chittagong port and Mongla port will be used by India as a transit route to ship goods into the northeastern part of India at a much quicker pace. So therefore, improving connectivity to the northeastern part of India from mainland India, and also making sure that the time would be reduced to ship goods from mainland India to the northeastern part of India to overcome any limitations with respect to the connectivity. We will understand briefly the trade relations between India and Bangladesh. In fact, when we talk about India-Bangladesh trade relations, Bangladesh is India's biggest trading partner in South Asia. Now, when we talk about South Asia, there are total 8 countries which are part of South Asia, and out of 8 countries in the Indian subcontinent, Bangladesh is known as India's largest trade partner in the subcontinent. However, for Bangladesh, India is the second biggest partner in Asia after China. So this essentially means that for Bangladesh, China is the largest trading partner and India is the second largest trading partner. Now, when we talk about the goods that Bangladesh exports to, India exports to Bangladesh, so it actually includes a variety of goods ranging from cotton textiles, machinery, food products, and even India imports from Bangladesh products like jute and fish as well. And apart from that, for India, Bangladesh is the biggest export destination for the cotton textile, and in fact, it accounts for India's 34.9% of total cotton exports, some 2.4 billion in the financial year 2024. In fact, so India also imports a lot of items from the Bangladesh, particularly the ready-made garments. Ready-made garments from Bangladesh is the largest imports of India from Bangladesh. They are amounting to some 391 million US dollars in the financial year 24, and in fact recent years Bangladesh has emerged as a major global hub for the textile industry, right? So we also knew that majority of the clothes are being made in Bangladesh. Bangladesh has emerged as a global textile hub, and in this context, what does it mean for India? So the fall of Sheikh Hasina government in Bangladesh. So what exactly it will be mean for India? So India has already improved the security or deployed security personnel across India Bangladesh border, because it could potentially increase illegal migration into India from Bangladesh. However, the government's immediate priority is to control illegal migration from Bangladesh to India. So therefore, border security has been increased, and secondly, there is a probability that anti-India government likely be formed in Bangladesh, and anti-India government would act against India's interests. It would be either pro-Pakistan, or it would be pro-China, or both as well. So that would be particularly a concern for India. And apart from that, India always wanted to improve infrastructure in the northeastern part of India. However, the pro-Indian Sheikh Hasina resignation would be a blow for India's connectivity projects, whether it is Mongla, Chittagong port projects, whether Akhauda, Agartala rail link project. So everything will be a big blow for India's connectivity projects. And apart from that, there may be increase in the insurgency activities, that Sheikh Hasina government acted strongly against this insurgency, and even radical elements in Bangladesh would also give a fillip to the terrorism within Bangladesh, and India may see the cross-border terrorism like India-Pakistan border. So this will be another major concern, right? So these are the major concerns that we would have with Bangladesh because of Sheikh Hasina's resignation as Bangladeshi Prime Minister. So the next important article that we are going to discuss is Srinagar will be the World Craft City of 2024. Srinagar as declared as World Craft City of 2024. So we will understand what is this World Craft City status, who gives this status, and what does it mean for a Srinagar when if it got this World Craft City status of 2024. So Srinagar has been recognized as the World Craft City by the World Craft Council. World Craft Council has given this recognition to the World Craft City for its centuries-old excellence in craftsmanship, earning international recognition for the Kashmiri artisans and for their exceptional skills. Now, what is this World Craft City tag that we need to understand? So, World Craft City tag is actually considered as an honor on the part of cities. And in fact, this World Craft City tag is given by the World Craft Council. And this World Craft Council is a non-governmental organization, right? This is a non-governmental organization, and World Craft Council is dedicated to empowering artisans and preserving their craft heritage across the world. So that is the key objective of World Craft Council. Now, what is the legacy of this craftsmanship that we need to understand? So when we talk about the legacy of craftsmanship, So there are a centuries old tradition that is preserved in Srinagar, and that is very important because Srinagar's cultural history actually spanning over last 4,000 years. So it is centuries old cultural history in Srinagar, and it is being celebrated for its craftsmanship in different aspects. For example, craftsmanship in terms of shawls making, carpets making, papier making, mache, and even other art sectors. And that's why World Crafts Council has given Srinagar World Craft City status because of its rich craftsmanship in different products. However, Srinagar craftsmanship has a rich influence of Persian and even Central Asian artisans also, because the craft scene that flourished notably from the 14th century onward, and it was influenced by artisans and preachers from Iran and Central Asia. So therefore it is a rich blend of Indian, Iranian and Central Asian craftsmanship. So how this recognition of World Craft City by the World Craft Council to Srinagar will boost the economy and will also result in export growth. So first and foremost, the Kashmir's handicraft sector has witnessed a significant economic gains in recent times, because in recent times the exports have increased from 1000 to 2000 crore over the last 5 years, and it is a significant development. When any place have registered a higher amount of exports, it actually provides employment opportunities, gainful employment opportunities, particularly for women. We should not undermine the role that handicrafts actually provide employment opportunities for the women. Apart from employment opportunities, it would improve living standards of the people, because there will be a significant increase in the demand for these crafts, and it would improve living standards, and it would help in alleviating poverty of the people, right? So it would alleviate poverty of the people, and that is very important. And there will be international recognition for Srinagar craftsmanship, international recognition for Srinagar's craftsmanship, and that is very, very important here. And apart from that, the World Craft Council tag is expected to further give boost to the global recognition and even demand for the Kashmiri handicrafts, and that is very important in further enhancing the exports of Kashmiri craft. And it would also enhance the incomes and opportunities for the artisans. It would benefit them, right? So when we talk about the promotion of craftsmen and heritage preservation, so there is a link between promotion of crafts and heritage of Srinagar can also be preserved by this. So this designation as a World Craft City actually highlights the rich craftsmanship of Srinagar, particularly unsung artisans from the 14th century who actually played an essential role in preserving the traditional techniques of the craftsmanship for several generations. So how this tag will benefit Srinagar? When we talk about this, so it would create global linkages of Srinagar crafts, handicrafts, and it would create global markets. And this will particularly strengthen Srinagar's connections with the traditional craft centers, particularly Central Asia and Iran. And it would also result in knowledge exchange, because it would facilitate knowledge, it would create a lot of knowledge, and the world get to know about the rich craftsmanship of Srinagar. Hence it would facilitate knowledge exchange with other craft cities across the world, and it would also enhance skills and techniques of the Srinagar crafts. And apart from that, it would also give a boost to the economic growth, because this recognition of Srinagar craft would be expected to boost the local economy by attracting global attention and even promoting Srinagar's crafts on an international stage, and that is very important here, right? So the World Craft tag for Srinagar is a significant milestone, and it would promote global linkages, and it would further enhance region's cultural, economic prospects through its rich craft heritage in the future. And next important article, powering India's future. This is specifically about India's renewable energy potential. So how India can do better in terms of generating adequate renewable energy. The context is that the goal of achieving independence, so the goal of achieving energy security or energy independence by the year 2047, because by 2047 India would celebrate 100 years of its independence. So therefore we wanted to be a developed country, Vikasit Bharat, by 2047. Not just Vikasit Bharat, we also wanted to become completely energy independent by 2047. This is also an ambitious goal on the part of the government. So therefore it is a pivotal aspect of government's vision for Vikasit Bharat by 2047. However, the projections from the government have been suggesting that, in fact, if you look at India's total CO2 emissions, the total CO2 emissions in India will peak by around 2030s. By 2030s, India will produce maximum amount of carbon emissions into the atmosphere. However, from 2030 onwards, from the peak, we could see a subsequent decline or decrease in the CO2 emissions. It is expected that the CO2 emissions would be declined to around 800 million ton per year by the year 2047. So by the year 2047, so the peak CO2 emissions, it would reach by 2030, it would reach a peak, and from 2030 onwards it would start declining 800 million tons per year by 2047, marking 85 to 90% progress towards the net zero emissions, right? So it would actually mark a progress towards net zero emissions that India actually aims to achieve by the year 2070 as part of its Panchamrit commitments. And apart from that, so if you look at some of India's commitments with respect to renewable energy, with respect to reducing its dependence on fossil fuels, so because these are ambitious targets that India has already made in Glasgow summit, there are 5 targets, and one such target is, so India has been planning to install over 500 gigawatt of non-fossil fuel electricity generation capacity by 2030. This is one of the objective of the government of India, and with the aim of achieving 80% green grid by 2040 and 90% green grid by 2047. And in fact, a cleaner India, which is free from using fossil fuels, because fossil fuels results in emission of greenhouse gases. A cleaner India actually have aspirations to set forth an aggressive deployment of green energy. And in fact, India has been actually aiming for 100 gigawatt per year between 2030 and 2050. And in fact, the deployment of green hydrogen and even electrification of industrial sectors, so that could potentially reduces industrial coal imports by 95% and further strengthening India's energy security. Because as of now, Indian industries have also been using coal on a large scale. And if we made Indian industries make a transition towards using a green hydrogen as a fuel, then Indian industries would substantially reduces their dependence on the coal, because burning coal is a fossil fuel. Burning fossil fuels would releases greenhouse gases into the atmosphere, and that would further contribute to the higher emissions and global warming and even climate change also. So therefore, making industries use green hydrogen would substantially reduces the sector's dependence on coal, industrial sector dependence on coal and coal imports by 95%, and that would further strengthen India's total energy security. And apart from that, renewable technologies or renewable energy technologies. So the renewable energy technologies including offshore wind energy, waste to energy production, and even distributed green energy systems. So they will be crucial in achieving all these goals. However, India has been working aggressively on this area to substantially increase the potential capacity of renewable energy. And in fact, we have a lot of ambitious goals with respect to wind energy generation, solar energy generation, generation of biofuels, first generation biofuels, second generation biofuels, and third generation biofuels. And apart from that, we are also focusing on generating a substantial portion, or India able to meet a substantial portion of its energy requirements from the nuclear energy. That is also very important. And India has also launched national biofuel policy, national green hydrogen mission. So all these policies aimed at making India energy energy reliant, so right, energy resilient. It will not dependent on imports from other countries. We are self sufficient in terms of energy resources. However, the green economy would grow substantially, and it would also create a lot of jobs in the clean energy sectors as well. We could expect that this clean energy sector and a transition towards clean energy would also create large scale employment opportunities, right? So in this context, if there are any investments made in clean energy infrastructure, so that would it is expected to create a numerous employment opportunities for India's youth. However, we need to emphasize, or we need to increase our focus, our attention on developing pumped energy storage systems, battery storage solutions, and it is very important and very crucial for addressing the intermittency of renewable energy resources. And it would also further enhance grid flexibility and grid reliability as well. And apart from that, it is very important that we need to attract the climate finance. And as per the Paris commitments, the developed world has committed $100 billion of assistance to developing countries and least developed countries. So India must secure climate finance, and it is also very important to attract climate finance so that India could invest in important areas such as solar energy, wind energy, disaster resilience as an area, and national hydrogen mission, further giving boost to biofuel policy of the government. So therefore, facilitating investments in clean energy projects and supporting the transition into a sustainable energy economy is very, very important. Now, when we talk about the sources of energy for India as of now, our major share of energy actually comes from coal. Coal is a fossil fuel, but still we have dependent on coal to meet our energy demand or energy requirements, right? So we have substantially dependent on coal and other petroleum products, and most of which are imported from other countries, because I am emphasizing this time and again that we have been importing 85% of crude oil from other countries, Russia, Middle East, and all these countries. We have been importing around 85% of our crude oil requirements. However, when we talk about these fossil fuels, coal or crude oil, they are non-renewable sources of energy, and they are also a sources of pollution, and they would also release a lot of greenhouse gases into the environment. So therefore, government has actually been making a lot of efforts to decrease our dependence on coal for power generation, right? So we wanted to reduce our dependence on coal for the power generation in the longer term. However, if you look at the number of sustainable sources of electricity generation in India, through water, the hydroelectricity projects, we could also generate a potential sustainable source of energy, because the hydrothermal power plants in the country, which actually supply power to numerous factories, industries, and households across the country. The energy of high-speed water is being harnessed to turn the turbines, and that would generate electricity, and this electricity is also considered as one of the potential source of energy generation. And apart from that, nuclear energy, especially the nuclear power plants, in these nuclear power plants, nuclear fission as a process will be done, and it is also another major source of energy in India. And in fact, nuclear power plants have a huge potential of generating a huge electricity, right? So the energy which is being generated from the nuclear power plants is actually generated through a process called nuclear fission. Fission is the process through which energy is being generated from the nuclear power plants. And when we talk about the nuclear fission, so it is an atomic process in which one large nuclei would split into several or small nuclei, and that can be used to generate electricity. This is the process that is actually being done in the nuclear fission. when we talk about wind and solar energy, right? So when we talk about wind and solar energy, so these are renewable sources of energy, right? So these are renewable sources of energy. So since both wind and solar are present abundantly in nature, right? So these are renewable sources of energy. Now we have India as a country has been producing a lot of renewable energy from wind and solar, because it is a renewable sources of energy, and it is environment friendly, it is sustainable, and it is also a green form of energy. Since both wind and solar energy are present abundantly in nature, they can never get exhausted, and hence we can ensure a lifetime supply of energy through these things, right? So that's why India has taken up an initiative along with France to establish International Solar Alliance to promote cooperation in terms of solar energy generation, right? So in case in energy generation and supply, increase in the energy generation and energy supply, it would not only accelerate the economic growth of India, but also it would play a significant role in improving the living standards of the people. However, as of now, the government actually envisions supply of energy to every district of India, and even economic and social upliftment of all the country, and that can be done through the reducing dependence on the fossil fuels and making our economy a faster transition towards cleaner and greener fuels, solar, wind, nuclear power plants, all these ways, right? So that is very important here. And today we have one practice question for mains examination. The question is, analyze the security challenges that India has been facing, particularly from its border areas. Because remember that India has been sharing a long border with Myanmar, with Bangladesh, with Pakistan, with Bhutan, with Nepal, with China, even with Afghanistan also, right? So since India has been surrounded by the complex neighborhood, India has been facing number of security challenges in the border areas. Particularly when we talk about these challenges, cross-border terrorism is one challenge emanating from Pakistan. Illegal migration, another challenge. Smuggling of weapons and drugs is another challenge. So evaluate the measures taken by the government to enhance border security and manage the challenges, right? So how can the government of India would manage these challenges, and what are the measures that the government of India has already undertaken? Now the approach of the question, as per the demand of the question, you need to give a brief detail about India's border management in the introduction itself. And secondly, analyze the security challenges which India has been facing at the border areas. And third, discuss measures that the government has been already undertaken to deal with these challenges, and write the need to done away with, or write the needs, what needs to be done as a way forward in the conclusion, what needs to be done in this particular context, because that is also very, very important for Indian context, right? So a brief introduction about the border management in India, right? So as I have already told you that India is surrounded by complex neighborhood. So India's internal security is intrinsically linked to its border management. So border management is very, very important aspect for India, but unfortunately India has porous borders. That is one shortcoming. Due to its vast and porous borders, we have porous borders. There's no fencing of borders. There is no strong surveillance of the borders. There's a poor law enforcement at the border areas. And in fact, India has been sharing its borders with several South Asian countries, including Myanmar also. These borders actually present unique challenges due to the diverse topography and even the demographic composition of India. Now, in this context, we need to analyze some security challenges that India has been facing its border areas. Right. So when we talk about the security challenges that India has been facing, right, so India has been sharing its borders with countries like Pakistan, Myanmar, and infiltration is one of the challenge. So Pakistan supporting cross-border terrorism, and in fact insurgency from Myanmar to India, Bangladesh to India is a challenge. There are a lot of terrorist organizations which are located across the borders of India, and it has been causing a persistent internal security threat or internal security challenge for India. So some examples include Pakistan cross-border terrorism has resulted in terrorist attacks such as Uri terrorist attack, Pulwama terrorist attack in Jammu and Kashmir. And in fact, these terrorist attacks are orchestrated or conducted by the Pakistani-based terrorist outfits. And when we talk about India, Bangladesh, India, Myanmar border, illegal migration is another very important and a complex problem. Since 1971, War of Independence in Bangladesh, so that has created the state of Bangladesh. Millions of Bangladeshi immigrants, particularly a majority of the immigrants are illegal immigrants, have entered into India, especially states like Assam, Tripura, Mizoram, Meghalaya and West Bengal. Right, so illegal immigration particularly creates a lot of challenges in India because it would alter demographies in India. And in fact, ethnically sensitive northeast region would actually face the brunt of illegal immigration. Communal violence is a regular phenomenon, and acquiring voting rights or voter ID cards by these illegal immigrants also poses threats to the democratic process in India. And apart from that, we have also seen the Rohingya crisis, Rohingya infiltration. Rohingyas are Muslim minorities in Myanmar, and these Rohingyas in recent times, they are illegally entering into India through India-Bangladesh border and India-Myanmar border in order to escape religious persecution in Myanmar. So Myanmar's army has been, in order to curb Rohingya militants, right? So in order to attack Rohingya militants, so there has been, a religious persecution that has been taking place in Myanmar, and that has led to the displacement of Rohingya Muslim minorities, and it has further added this Rohingya conflict has resulted in around 40,000 to 45,000 Rohingya refugees. They come to India, they settled in India as in different parts of India. And apart from that, inadequate border fencing. When we talk about India-Myanmar border, we have free movement regime, right? So across these border areas, we have free movement regime. So to make sure that the people who are living in the border areas continues to maintain their relations with the people on the other side of the border. However, recently the Home Ministry decided to end this free movement regime because of the problems like civil war in Myanmar and insurgency problem. Right, so it decided to end this border. So inadequate border fencing due to issues such as riverine areas, protests by the residing population and pending land acquisition, all these areas have been making India's borders more and more porous. And apart from that, there is also an increasing threat of narcotics and drug trafficking, human trafficking, cattle trafficking that is widely prevalent between India and Bangladesh and even India and Myanmar also, right? So in fact, so cattle is a unique problem with the border. So it is said that in India, if India restricts the supply of cattle to Bangladesh, Bangladesh could starve. So that is general belief, because cattle from far away places, Haryana, UP, Bihar, are taken to the borders for grazing, and then they were smuggled into Bangladesh. So cattle smuggling is also one of the most serious problem between India and Bangladesh border. However, in recent times, government has taken number of measures to further strengthen the border security across India-Myanmar, India-Bangladesh, India-Pakistan and all other neighboring countries. So particularly when we talk about India-Myanmar border, the government of India decided to end this free movement regime. The government of India also decided to fence the border across India and Myanmar. So government has announced the establishment of border protection grid with Indo-Bangladesh border states, so that could prevent the illegal human trafficking, cattle smuggling, counterfeiting of currency notes, drug trafficking, insurgency and even illegal migration into India. The government of India also decided to install border surveillance devices such as closed circuit cameras across India, Bangladesh, India, Pakistan borders, searchlights, thermal imaging devices and even drones to keep a tight visual on the border areas. The BSF, the Border Security Force and Bangladesh Border Security Force, BGB, have also been raising awareness among the locals regarding crime prevention across these border areas. And in fact, the government of India actually launched a coordinated border management plan, and this coordinated border management plan essentially aims to synergize the efforts of both border guarding forces for checking cross-border illegal activities and crimes that are taking place across these borders, and even maintenance of peace and tranquility along the India-Bangladesh border. And the government also decided to construct integrated checkposts. So these integrated checkposts will facilitate trade, and they would actually work as a trade facilitation centers, and they would also help in streamlining customs clearance procedures and reduced trade barriers, and it would further facilitate trade and commerce along India's borders with other countries, for example, India, Myanmar, India, Bangladesh, India, Nepal, India, Bhutan borders. So the border area development program that was also launched or started by the government in the year 1986-87. So this program was launched with the aim of balanced development of border areas of states which are particularly bordering Pakistan, namely Jammu and Kashmir, Punjab, Gujarat, Rajasthan, and it will be subsequently extended to all the border areas, so that the border management would be one of the best aspect. It would be further strengthened. There would be no loopholes in the border management. So however, ultimately managing India's porous borders is crucial and very important, because if we perfectly manage India's borders, so that could help in addressing the internal security challenges in India because of drug trafficking, insurgency, militancy, terrorism. So therefore, in this context, there is a need for the comprehensive approach, and this comprehensive approach must encompass technological solutions. Circuit cameras should be installed. Electric fences should also be erected across these border areas. And apart from that, India should also regularly engage with all the relevant and concerned parties and stakeholders, and even community engagement is also very, very important to sensitize community over crimes that have been taking place across the borders. So is needed to fortify these vulnerable frontiers and further enhance internal security. So this is how you could address this particular question. Right, so that's all in this lecture, and thank you so much. So if you like our work, please subscribe our YouTube channel and also hit the like button. Thank you.